Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, you're checking out an updated solo Stamina Necromancer build. This is for the Harrow Storm DLC. What we've got here is a super simple and easy to use dot focus build. I'm going to show you how to run it as a 1-bar setup and then as a 2-bar setup. And honestly, either way that you play this is very fun and very strong. We've got tons of dot damage, as I mentioned. Very good defensives, survivability, and heal over time, and it's just a lot of fun to play. Of course, we'll be going over the stats, all the gear options, skills, champion points. I'll talk about the outfit style and show some gameplay towards the end. So make sure you stick around. Let's get started. All right, here we are back on the Stamina Necro for a 1-bar solo build. We'll be going over some options for 2 bars as well. But just keep in mind, this is a solo build for the Elder Scrolls Online. This is not a pure DPS build. This is meant for soloing things like world bosses, dungeons. So just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and buff up, though. Check out those buff stats on the build. We do have a weapon power potion and our little spirit guardian. It's basically all we need. And then once you're fully buffed, sitting at about 15k max magicka, 22k maximum health, 34k max stamina. Our recoveries, you do need your Guardian up to get the most recovery possible there, sitting at almost 800 Magicka recovery, 900 health recovery, and about 1300 stamina recovery. Our weapon damage sits at about 3300 buffed. That's on the 1-bar setup. Of course, if you're playing this with 2 bars, you have options for getting that well over 4k weapon damage, 56% weapon critical. And then our resistances, this is a medium armor build, sitting at about 13,000 there. Those do go up for the 2-bar setup if you would like to play a little bit more defensive. 64 points into stamina, of course. This is a Stamina Necromancer build. Running the Lover Mundus to increase that spell and physical penetration. We've got Bewitched Sugar Skulls as the food that's going to give us the most resources possible, including health recovery, which is pretty nice for soloing. Let's see what else. The potions we mentioned are going to be weapon power potions. That gives us the weapon power buff as well as the weapon critical buff, which is very important for the solo build. And then in terms of the race, for this particular setup, I have chosen REDGUARD. For this, I think REDGUARD is nice for soloing. You get the reduced cost of weapon abilities, which we are using quite a few of those, which we'll get to in a minute. You also have the max stamina boost by 2,000, and then Adrenaline Rush gives you 950 stamina back every 5 seconds. So I was playing around with different races. I tried Nord for the ultimate generation. I tried Orc. Obviously, Orc gives you more damage. But since this is a solo build, I wanted to make sure the sustain was where I needed it, and that's why I like REDGUARD. I like the extra stamina sustain. But that's my choice. You can obviously pick something else that you prefer. This is just what's working for me. So that's the basics. Let's go ahead and jump into the gear next. Starting with the first 5-piece set, we're using the Deadly Strike set. This gives us weapon damage, weapon critical, weapon damage again. And for the 5-piece bonus here, increases the damage of physical, bleed, poison, and disease damage over time effects by 20%. That also includes channeled abilities. So, if you haven't guessed it, this is going to be a dot-focused build. This is a dot Stamina Necromancer. I really like the dot playstyle. I think it's great for soloing. It's strong for PvP even. And it synergizes really well with the Stamina Necromancer due to some of the passives that we have on the class, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But we're basically running as many dots as possible, including poisons, to make use of this 5-piece bonus. It's extremely strong. 20% bonus to all of our dots, essentially. That's why you don't need a super high weapon damage. You're getting basically that 20% bonus on almost everything that we do. So if you're interested in this set, it is from Cyrodiil. You can get this from the Cyrodiil town merchants. You can also buy this on Guild Traders. You can run this either on your body pieces or on your weapons, your jewelry. It really doesn't matter. Just whatever pieces you get is fine. I'm choosing to run this on weapons and jewelry, though, on this particular setup. So I've got dual-wield here on the front bar. I'm running an axe as well as a dagger. Axe, of course, is going to give us that chance to proc an extra damage over time effect. That axe bleed actually is increased by the 20% as well. And then the dagger is just giving us some bonus crit. So as far as the traits here, Nirnhond on the main hand is still going to be your best in slot. That's just going to give you extra weapon damage. And then for the offhand here, you can do Precise, you can do Sharpened. Whatever traits you have there are fine. Like I mentioned, you do want a double damage poison. If you have the crown damage poisons, that's fine. Or you can do the crafted versions if you prefer. But we do definitely want those double dot poisons because those are going to be buffed by the Deadly Strike set as well. So 2 pieces on the weapons and then just 3 for the jewelry. I have 2 weapon damage enchants as well as 1 stamina recovery. Now you could probably do full weapon damage enchants if you want. You can even run infused traits here if you happen to have the transmute stones, but just to kind of make the setup easy, 2 weapon damage and 1 extra stamina recovery to help you with your sustain. So that is our first 5-piece set. And then on the body, my second 5-piece set, I've chosen to run the Briarheart set. This gives us a lot of weapon damage, stacking on top of what we already have, as well as some healing. So you can see the bonuses here. We got weapon critical, max stamina, weapon critical again. And then when you deal critical damage, you can increase your weapon damage by 450 for 10 seconds, and then heal for about 400 every second as well. And that does have a cooldown though. So it's up for 10 seconds, down for 5. But with the critical chance that we have on this build already, I find the cooldown is not such a big deal. And the extra weapon damage and the extra healing is very nice. So Briarheart, if you're not aware, this comes from the Hrothgar DLC. And you can just, again, you can wear any 5 pieces that you want. Since this is a medium armor build, you can choose to wear these on the body or weapons and jewelry, whatever you happen to pick up. Now I know this set and Deadly Strike can be a little expensive, so some alternatives if you want to replace this, I would also recommend New Moon Acolyte. That's a crafted set. That's going to give you a lot of weapon damage, a lot of critical and physical penetration. That's another nice substitute, as well as the Hunding's Rage set, another crafted set. Both of those sets combined will be similar. You won't have quite as much damage and healing, but you can definitely make it work if you want to try some of those other sets. Like I mentioned, we are running medium armor on the body here, 5 pieces of medium. And then you want all max stamina as your enchants, and then divines, as many divines pieces as you can get, because that's going to make your Mundus even more powerful. So last but not least, let's talk about the monster set. You have some options here. Going along with the theme of our Stamina Necromancer, kind of that dot-focused setup, I'm actually using the Thorvakin set on this. This gives a lot of nice bonuses for soloing. So if you have this, or if you're looking for a good solo helm, definitely check this out. You get the 1-piece maximum health boost, which is very good for soloing. If you can get your health, over 20k, that's amazing. And the 2-piece here is actually good as well. We do some bonus AoE damage, some disease damage, so that fits in the theme with this Necromancer build. But we also get the minor maim debuff, which is amazing for soloing. That reduces the enemy's damage done to you by 15%, basically with no cooldown. So this puts a little AoE on the ground, the enemy steps in that, and then they're doing 15% less damage. It is AoE as well, so it's affecting all the enemies in the area, which is great. Now, this is a DLC set, so I understand not everybody will have access to this. You can replace this with some basic sets. Slimecraw, for example, would be great to do some bonus damage on your build. If you want more tankiness, more defensives, you can use the Bloodspawn set. So that's what I would recommend if you don't have Thorvakin. For our monster set pieces, I'm actually using 2 pieces of heavy in this case, so heavy helmet and heavy shoulders. I just like the extra armor, especially on the 1-bar setup, because I'm not running an armor buff, and then I like the extra health. So 2 pieces of heavy, 5 pieces of medium, that's the setup. Again, we're running Deadly Strike, we're running Briarheart, and then Thorvakin. So let's jump to the skills next. For the 1-bar setup, we are running WIELD. So our first ability is going to be Blighted Blast Bones. This comes from the Gravelord skill line. That's the second ability that you get. Blighted Blast Bones, that is the stamina morph, so you're going to want that one for this particular setup. This does good damage in an AoE. It does the Major Defile debuff, really not a big deal for PvE at all. You don't really need that. But what you really need from this ability is some of the passives that we get from the Gravelord skill line, as well as this putting a corpse on the ground. You'll see with one of our other very strong dot abilities that we need corpses on the ground. So Blighted Blast Bones is pretty much the quickest and easiest way to accomplish it. So that's why I recommend this skill. This is not a dot skill. This is actually the only non-damage over time ability that we have, but I think there's enough upside where you still want to run this on your Stamina Necromancer, even for a dot focus build. Next up, we got Blood Craze. That comes from the dual wield skill line. Second ability that you get, we're going to use the Blood Craze morph just for the extra healing. You can see we get a nice heal over time for the duration, and doing about 11k unbuffed damage over 10 seconds as well, plus the initial damage. So this is getting buffed by our Deadly Strike set. It is low cost and it's healing us, so a lot of good benefits from this skill as well. Third skill, that's going to be Detonating Siphon. This also comes from the Gravelord skill line. That's the last ability that you get, and you can see the tooltip here is absolutely massive with Deadly Strike, over 21k disease damage over time, plus an additional explosion after 12 seconds, so you can get some nice AoE damage. Keep that in mind, this is an AoE damage over time. But what you do need here, since it is a tether ability, is you do need a corpse. So you're going to need to combine this with your Blighted Blast Bones, making sure that explodes first before you cast this, so you at least have that corpse on the ground. Otherwise, you won't be able to use this ability at all. Next up, Bloodthirst, also from the dual wield skill line. That's the first ability that you get, and I've chosen the healing morph again. That's what Bloodthirst does. The final hit deals 300% more damage and heals you for 68% of the damage caused. So this being a channeled ability, you can see that 0.6 second channel time. This will get buffed by the Deadly Strike set as well. It's fairly low cost, and the fact that it is channeled means our sustain is really going to be more manageable with this as our main spammable ability. Basically, you should be able to combine this, spammable with your Blighted Blast Bones. Since Blast Bones takes about 3 seconds to fully cast, you're going to do Blighted Blast Bones and then 2 Bloodthirsts. By the time you cast that second Bloodthirst, your Blast Bones should have exploded, and then you can just recast that. So Blast Bones, 2 Bloodthirst, Blast Bones, 2 Bloodthirst, and then obviously throw in our other dots as well, our Blood Craze, our Siphon. Our last regular ability then is going to be Spirit Guardian. This ability is really, really good. This comes from the Living Death skill line. That's the second to last ability that you get, and Spirit Guardian is the morph that I prefer. It does a little bit less healing, but you can see while active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the spirit instead. So that's basically a 10% damage reduction. So even though we don't really have an armor buff on the 1-bar setup, this almost acts as an armor skill because of all the damage reduction that we're getting. Plus it heals us back. And so notice that on the 1-bar setup, this is giving healing, Bloodthirst is providing healing, and Blood Craze, all of these abilities are providing heals over time, which is really nice. Obviously on the 2-bar setup, you can build in some extra healing and defense, but I find that the 3 heals here really is fine. It works really well. Now for the ultimate on the 1-bar setup, I just wanted to go with the dual wield theme here, and I decided to use Rend. Now Rend is a really strong ultimate, but not a lot of builds use it. Notice that it is bleed and it is damage over time, so this is going to be buffed by Deadly Strike. Just on the 1-bar setup, we have basically a 70k tooltip on this, which is not bad, considering we also get 50% of that back as healing for 16 seconds. That's a super long heal over time, one of the longest in the game at this point. So again, that's going to combine with all the heal over times that we have from our other abilities. Also notice that since we are a REDGUARD on this setup, I have some cost reduction of all my weapon abilities, including weapon ultimates. So on the REDGUARD, you can cast this faster and you can get that heal back sooner. Now, if you don't like this ability, yes, you can of course use the Colossus ultimate. You'll get less damage and less healing. Obviously, there's no healing component, but this does give major vulnerability, which will make your other abilities hit stronger, potentially giving you more healing back from these. So it's up to you. I do like Rend just for the dual wield theme of this build. So that is the basic 1-bar setup. Now, what if you want to add a back bar weapon and make this a 2-bar build? Well, all you're going to need in that case is a bow. I would recommend the Maelstrom bow if you happen to have it. If not, any old bow will do, either bow of agility. You could run a Deadly Strike bow on your back bar. It really doesn't matter. The main thing, though, is that you have an infused trait on that bow, because you want to run the weapon damage enchant there for an extra 452 weapon damage every 5 seconds. And that actually is a lot more than that. That'll be closer to 600 when you're fully buffed with Major Brutality. So that's all you'll need for the 2-bar setup. Pick up a bow for that back bar, and then what skills would you use? I would keep pretty much all of these on the front bar. The only thing I would change is I would move Spirit Guardian to the back. In that case, you can just run a Fighter's Guild ability here if you want. You can run something like Camouflage Hunter. You can also run Consuming Trap on the front bar. That's a very nice damage over time ability. And since this does physical or magic damage based on whichever is higher, this will actually get buffed by Deadly Strike as well. You can see almost 17k tooltip unbuffed on that Consuming Trap skill. That's really nice. That's from the Soul Magic skill line. I definitely recommend you check that out if you're running the 2-bar setup, because that's a very strong damage over time ability. Now for the back bar, since this is a bow, we're just going to run Endless Hail. That's from the bow skill line. That's the second ability here. Endless Hail is the morph that gives a longer duration, so that's what I recommend. And really, it does get buffed by Deadly Strike, but the main thing that we're using this for is to proc that weapon damage enchant. That's the best way to proc it on your back bar. Now, also on the back bar, I'm going to recommend another Fighter's Guild ability. That's Barb Trap. That is the last skill that you get from the Fighter's Guild. This gives you very nice damage over time, as well as Minor Force. So we do have very high crit on this build. That's going to make all those crits do 10% more damage. So this is going to add a lot of damage to the build if you run that on the back bar. Next, I'm going to recommend Necrotic Potency. This is another Necromancer skill that comes from the Bone Tyrant skill line. And this is going to be very nice for like farming experience, farming champion points, even clearing through dungeons, because what this does is it gives you 6 ultimate back per corpse that's on the ground, plus healing, about 1,000 healing every second. So this is one of my favorite abilities just for farming. It's a very nice utility and heal over time skill. Definitely check that out. Then if we're running 2 bars, we also have room for an armor buff, so you definitely want to run Beckoning Armor. This comes from Bone Tyrant as well. That is the second ability that you get. So this gives you the major resolve buff. So that's going to give you up to about 17, 18k physical and spell resistance on the build, which is going to be really nice. We get some extra passives from having Bone Tyrant abilities active, and we get the nice ranged pull on this. While active, enemies that strike you with a ranged attack are going to be pulled towards you every 3 seconds. So this is great again for clearing through dungeons. Any of those pesky range enemies like mages, archers, as soon as they hit you, they're going to be pulled in by having this armor buff active. So that's really nice. Then of course we still want Spirit Guardian, so I'm going to run that in this slot. Then for your ultimate, just pick your ultimate of choice here. Pestilent Colossus. You could run the Bone Goliath ultimate. You could even run the Bow ultimate if you want. Whatever you want here is fine. And that's the basic 2-bar setup. All right, so that covers the active abilities. Let's talk about passives next. Necromancers have some of the best passives in the game, and a lot of these are going to be very important for any Stam Necromancer solo style build. So reusable parts, this makes Blast Bone super cheap. You saw about 1,000 stamina cost on that, which is really good for our sustain. Death Knell, this does give us increased critical strike chance to enemies that are in execute range. You can obviously increase this if you want by running the Colossus Ultimate. Then Dismember, this gives us bonus physical penetration when that Blast Bones or the Tether ability is active. And then Rapid Rot, this is the key for this build, you guys. Increases your damage over time effects by 15%. This is going to be combined with the Deadly Strike set, the 20% bonus, making Stamina Necromancers one of the best dot classes in the game. This is why this build is so strong. Make sure you pick up that passive. Then Bone Tyrant on the 1-bar setup, since we aren't running any abilities, this becomes less useful. Death Gleaning, that gives you sustain. Disdain Harm, that reduces your damage over time. Health Avarice, you'll get some extra healing received. But then Last Gasp, you get this bonus whether or not you're running one of these active abilities. So you want to pick up this for 2 points to get that extra 1250 max health. That's really good. Then under Living Death, we do have these active on the 1-bar setup because we are running Spirit Guardian right here on the front bar. So Curative Curse, this gives you extra healing if you have a negative effect on yourself. That's great. Living Death, extra healing crit strike chance. Corpse Consumption, this actually gives you extra ultimate back when using one of those corpse abilities. So basically your tether on the front bar. And then Undead Confederate. This is really good, you guys. 200 extra magicka and stamina recovery just by having that little Spirit Guardian buddy active. So make sure you keep him up all the time. Not only are you getting the health, the damage reduction, you're also getting sustain from that ability. So it's great. Now, under dual wield, you're going to want all of these. You have a lot of increased damage. You have some increased damage in execute range, reduced cost. The axe bleed that we talked about, 15k unbuffed damage from that axe bleed over 6 seconds. Very, very good. Make sure you pick that up. If you're running the 2-bar setup with a bow, obviously pick up your bow passives. And then this is primarily a medium armor build, so you're going to want dexterity, windwalker, agility, and athletics. Improved sneak is always optional. And then under heavy armor, I do recommend, like I said, 2 pieces of heavy. You could actually run maybe 1 heavy and 1 medium for a little bit extra medium armor passives. But either way, you want to pick up the first 3 heavy armor passives. In this skill line, you'll get extra physical and spell resistance, extra sustain, health recovery, and max health. Those are all very good. Fighters Guild. Now, you do have the opportunity to run some Fighters Guild abilities here, especially on the 2-bar setup. So you'll want Intimidating Presence to reduce the cost of those. You'll want the Slayer passive, as well as Banish the Wicked and Skilled Tracker. That's what I would recommend there in that skill line. Mages, Psijic Order, we're not using those. Undaunted, you will want Undaunted Metal. You'll get at least 4% bonus from that passive, so extra stats is always good. Alliance and Support are not required. Of course, pick up your racial skills and Alchemy Medicinal Use. This is very important. The weapon power potions are essential on this build. Unfortunately, Stamina Necromancer has no source of major brutality, so you need these potions, and this makes them last 30% longer, which is great. Now, what do I recommend for champion points? Again, this can be very dot focused. 31 into Warlord, 18 into Sprinter, 62 in Tenacity. Now, this is going to change depending on how the PTS winds up with this latest patch, whether light attacks restore or heavy attacks restore resources. I think either way, you're going to want a lot of points here just to help your sustain overall. So 62 points there. 32 into Healthy. This is going to bump up our health recovery. 32 Arcanist, 56 Mooncalf. 23 into Shadow Ward, 16 into Tumbling. 32 into Blessed. 28 Master at Arms, 16 Physical Weapon Expert, 72 Thaumaturge. This is where most of our damage is coming from, especially things like that Tether. Those are going to get boosted super, super high from this CP node. 40 into Precise Strikes, 18 Piercing, 64 into Mighty, 72 Ironclad, 49 into Hardy and Elemental Defender, 44 Thick-Skinned, 56 into Quick Recovery. This actually buffs the Spirit Guardian. That's why I have so many points here. So you can get about 12% bonus healing from that guy when he's active. Last but not least, let's go ahead and check out the outfit style if you're interested in this kind of undead look. So Head and Shoulders, this is just the Thorvakin style that comes with that monster set. I liked it. I thought it fit the theme of the build pretty well. It's got that bone armor look. Then the rest of it is just basically the Argonian. You have light armor, Argonian chest, Elder Argonian legs, and then the Argonian arms and feet. And then the waist is the only thing really that's different. That is going to be the Fang Lair sash. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up the solo Stamina Necromancer build for the Elder Scrolls Online. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Of course, if you did, don't forget to crush that like button. It really does help out the channel. I appreciate it. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more build videos just like this. I put out ESO builds, guides, and discussions every week here on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, links for my social media, as well as information on how to become a channel member, that's all listed down below. As always, thank you all so much for watching and supporting the channel. Hope you have a great day, stay safe, and I will see you around in the next video.